Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Friday, January 26th, 2018, your second daily dose of happy. And happy Friday to everybody. If you're on the East Coast especially, your workday is almost over. If you're on the West Coast, you're about halfway through. And everyone in the middle is, well, everyone in the middle.
Well put.
Well put, right. And you can tell we're off to a good start here because we're feeling good because it's a Friday and the weekend is upon us. So lots of reasons to feel good. And we even had some wins today and yesterday and so forth. In fact, Wendy, one of my wins this morning, we had a little bit of a technical issue with Tom with Google Hangouts deciding it didn't want to really let us hang out. But we got that one ironed out. So there's a win right there. There
you go. And yeah. I think you had another win.
Yeah, within the last 24 hours, I had a meeting with somebody who it was an interesting business meeting. Let's put it that way. And in the midst of this business meeting, this person I met with went off on this negative rant, and I mean like really very negative, and almost wouldn't stop. And I managed to get through the whole thing without it affecting me. In fact, when I got out and was talking to a friend about it later on, I was making jokes about it. So I managed to get through an entire negative rant without it affecting me. I was really proud of that.
That is a really big deal.
Yeah.
That is a really big deal. And I think later on, once we start jumping into our topic, we'll talk about how that call or that business meeting connects with our topic too, because I think that'll be an interesting conversation.
That's true, yeah, because the topic that we have today is a topic I think that it affects a lot of people. I certainly would say so based on what I see in the social media groups, and I imagine it's true. Obviously I'm not a life coach, so I don't have clients, but I would imagine life coaches run into this kind of thing all the time. So it's a very timely topic. I'm really glad we're doing it. But before we get to it, do you have any wins that you want to tell us about?
Well, you know what? Would you please introduce the topic? Because I think I want to talk about my win
in the context
of the topic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's fine. Well, the topic is patience, being patient, because when we're trying to learn how to be deliberate creators, one of the things that we have to deal with, depending especially on how much personal resistance we have built up, is the time factor. It takes a certain amount of time for stuff to arrive, so to speak, and in many cases, we are quite capable of keeping it permanently or semi-permanently at bay so it doesn't never show up. And so the question arises, well, how patient do I have to be before it shows up? And that's the basic topic for today.
Well, and why I think that's interesting and why it connects with my win is because for a long time, I've not thought about things in terms of patience. I kind of let go of that one ages ago because I recognize that things happen on a timetable that's more in conjunction with how positive I stay focused on the things that I desire and how much resistance am I able to let go of.
Right.
And so, I started talking, I think about a week or so ago, about an experiment that I've been doing where just for fun, I wanted to put out a giant want, and I kind of put a deadline to it. And in doing so, I said I would kind of talk about it and let you all know how it's going. Well, not a whole lot occurred over a couple days, and I kind of likened that to or associated it with the fact that I had this head cold, and so I was kind of otherwise occupied, and so every morning instead of waking up and focusing on this new thing that I was working on, I was focused on all the symptomology going on in my body. But then once the head cold cleared up, I noticed immediately I started asking questions about my project and what's moving forward and how come it's not and what can I do to make it move forward and how can it move forward. And then I got into a more positive space going, you know what, it's going to move forward. I'm going to put my attention on it and it'll move forward. Well, it started to just in little ways, but then you and I yesterday, Walt, after our call, and I think even the day before, just really talked about some stuff in a way that really activated the energy on my new project.
Yeah.
And what's so exciting about it is that I was so jazzed after you and I hung up the phone, and I then went grocery shopping. And what that means to me, grocery shopping in itself is not significant, but it means I get out of my house, I get driving, And I tend to get a lot of intuitive impulses when I'm out driving.
Oh, really?
Because I'm not thinking about anything heavily. I'm just out and about and enjoying the outside. And so I'm in a really good space. And so I tend to be in a receptive mode then, and I receive good information. And so I was getting more insight on where I'm going with this. And then all night long, at least every time I rolled around, I was aware that my thoughts were so engaged on my new project going forward. And I woke up like, oh, my gosh, I've spent so much time focused on this, and it's so real to me. Now, in the past, I would have felt like I need to just be patient until this thing shows up in my life. But I'm not feeling so much that I have to be patient so much as I have to stay tuned in to the guidance that's coming to me. And like yesterday, I got some very specific guidance because it was just so moving inside of me. I was like, I wanted to do something, and I heard, do nothing. Take no actions.
That's a good piece of guidance right there. That's the kind of guidance that I've often wished I was able to get. And I'm learning how to do it, but in the past I would get nothing. So, I mean, getting something like that would be very, very valuable information to have.
The guidance I got in terms of action was not to do anything in a three-dimensional thing, like don't call anybody, don't build a website, don't start networking it. Just bathe yourself in how it feels. Just let it continue to feel good within you.
Wow.
And just let that feeling grow. And oh my gosh, it is growing, and it feels so incredible.
I get the impression, too, it didn't affect your sleep at all either, because you're saying you kept getting awakened, but I don't get the impression that you lost any sleep over this.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think I was grateful that I woke up a number of times during my nighttime sleep so that I could have the awareness of how I kept focusing on this project.
Wow.
And it's like even all day long at work, every now and then I would just kind of tap back into it, and I'm like, oh, it's still there, and it's still exciting. And because, last week it kind of to me it felt like it went dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was a little disconcerting because I'm like, where did it go?
Yeah.
One minute it's alive, and then the next minute it's like, is there any pulse? But like I said, I think because I was so focused on the head cold symptoms and writing another chapter for our book,
right,
that it's like I was doing what was necessary. I was doing other stuff, but what I love knowing is it didn't go away. And when I put my attention on it, it was right where I left it. And then it's kept building and building and building. And so now it's like even bigger, and it's more exciting to me. And I think this is the way the process works, if you will. And so I'm having pleasure explaining it because I want people to know if they've never really activated law of attraction purposefully, or if they've never tried an experiment to see what does law of attraction really do for me. It's like I want to just give little tidbits of what it looks like in my life.
That's good. Now, I kind of want to prompt you to something that you mentioned before we did the call. It was a reaction that you described whenever somebody says, well, I'm trying to be patient when I'm applying the law of attraction. So I was wondering if you might be willing to share what your reaction was.
Gosh, I can't even remember what I said just 15 minutes ago. Okay. No, I can think of it because I just put myself in the situation if someone says, oh, well, I'm just being patient until such and such happens. I'm like, just kill me now. It's like there is no need for patience. Every time we even think it's patience that we have to enact, what we're really doing is saying, let's just sit back and do nothing. Let's just let the world go by. And if we're really lucky, the thing that we're waiting for will just show up. You know what, Walt? It doesn't work that way. Because things don't just show up if you let them go and don't pay attention to them.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, but the law of attraction, they tell us it just shows up. That's just, you ask, you receive, you believe. That's it.
Well, okay. There's truth to what I said and there's truth to what you said. So, like normal, I'm going to throw out here are the distinctions that make us both right and also make us both wrong, if you will.
Okay.
If you have resistance on the thing that you desire, if you have any negative feeling about it or doubt that it will ever happen, or worry or concern of how it's going to happen, and then you let yourself stop thinking about it. If you stop thinking about it long enough, the doubt and the worry vibrations will subside. And then over time, if you add no more negative fuel to it, it will show up. However, what I have found when I'm coaching or when I'm talking to people, the normal experience is when you really want something and you feel such a lack of it, you're really focusing on the lack, and therefore you actually keep it from showing up. And then if you say, well, I'm just going to be patient and not think about it, most people can't not think about it, not when they really want it bad.
Right.
They keep thinking about it even though they don't think they're thinking about it, or even if they don't want to think about it. Just saying, I'm not going to think about it, is thinking about it. And if when you're thinking about it, you bring your lackful thoughts to it, then you keep the lack of it.
Yeah, that's the distinction, isn't it? It's lackful versus excited. Mm-hmm. Because if you're lackful, if you're feeling any level of doubt or even the slightest level of discouragement, you're just not feeling up. It's not that you're feeling down, it's that you're not feeling up. Well, if that happens, you've just basically put out your stiff arms saying, you're not coming near me.
Well, and I mean, there are plenty of circumstances and examples that I could bring up in my own life where I had what I would call a fleeting thought, and it just showed up in almost no time at all. But that happens, I think, very rarely.
And it also happens where there's absolutely no resistance at all, where you just don't have even the slightest fragment of resistance.
Well, and what I was going to say, what happens very rarely is not that the fleeting thought things don't just show up, but what happens rarely is when there's something you really desire and you've had a lot of negative, lackful thoughts around it.
In general, yeah.
That's what that generally takes longer to show up.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a matter of patience. It's not like the universe is testing us. Or, when I was in the church, I used to hear all the time, God is teaching me patience. And I got to tell you, I got really sick to death of hearing that one. It's like, well, am I being tested for patience every day of my life?
I became impatient about it.
And that was kind of the churched response when things weren't manifesting quickly. They would just say, oh, well, God is teaching you patience. You need to be patient. And I'm so grateful I'm over that one.
Well, that one, the one that always got to me, I don't want to get on negative topics, but the one that got to me was, God always answers all prayers. Sometimes the answer is no.
Okay.
And I'm thinking
I have an understanding of that, but tell me what you think about it.
Well, if we equate asking God for something to the law of attraction, then I know for a fact that that's wrong. Because the answer is always yes. The question is, what's the question? What are you asking for? And what are you doing? What's your feeling matching up to it? Is there a congruence there? That's what the full answer is. But the way that they say it is, well, the answer is always no. Well, or sometimes no. That's really not accurate, in my opinion.
So if we were to kind of revamp that and say the answer is always yes, but sometimes we don't see it show up in our experience.
Yeah, that starts to get closer.
That's more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even more accurate when we say the answer is always yes, but sometimes we keep it at arm's length.
Right. And we keep it at an arm's length because, I'll let you fill in the blank.
Because we have introduced some level of doubt or concern or fear or something that doesn't feel great.
Something that doesn't line up with the manifestation of this wonderful thing that you want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because if you gotta, it's gotta be like what you were describing. You were describing how excited you are about this project. And it almost sounded like the excitement was driving you. That's how powerful it was, which I was feeling jealous, I have to tell you. Very honestly, I was feeling jealous.
It does feel like it's driving me. Not in a negative, destructive driving.
Right.
But the thoughts are just coming to me. I'm not reaching for the thoughts. And I was listening to an Abraham CD last night while I was driving around, and they were talking about the distinction between you thinking a thought purposefully versus you receiving a thought. Have you ever heard of that concept?
I can't say I remember hearing that one, no. Why don't you expound on it a little bit?
So this is one that I have been playing with for a while, and oh my gosh, it really turned my life upside down in a positive way. So I wanted to better understand how you know what the signs are that something is in process of being manifested.
Okay.
Because I kind of lived for a long time by the metaphor of the glacier, where the biggest portion of the glacier is underwater and you can't see it.
Right.
And you only see it when it tips above the water. And so I kind of saw a lot of things in my life like the glacier, like I'm building the foundation, I can't see it yet, and just keep doing the right things, and eventually it'll pop above the water and you'll start to see the fruits of your labor, so to speak. Well, I kind of wanted to see that in terms of the creations I wanted to see manifested in our three-dimensional physical world. And Abraham started talking about how when you receive a thought is part of manifestation because things start out with a thought.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I was playing with that, but lately they have been getting more distinctive in how they've been talking about it, which is, okay, and they said this, they said, we say the word thought because what we really want to say is vibration, but most of you humans can't really handle that one, so we'll just say thought. But in their model, thought and vibration are the same thing.
They're truly equivalent then, okay.
Truly equivalent. And they would never use the word thought if they knew that we could handle the word vibration, which I think is kind of funny. But the idea is, like, if I want something, let's say I go, I want to buy a blue sweater. I'm going to go out to the mall and I want to look for a blue sweater because I want a blue sweater. Well, that's me coming up with the idea that I wanted a blue sweater. But if I'm sitting around and let's say I'm watching TV and I'm really laughing at The Big Bang Theory, which is one of my favorite shows, and all of a sudden I get this image of a blue sweater and I like hear an inner dialogue in my head, go buy a blue sweater. Because the blue sweater idea would have come so out of the blue where I wasn't thinking of shopping, I didn't think I needed new clothes, I wasn't thinking about winter weather, needing a sweater, it just popped in.
And no pun intended, because it's a blue sweater out of the blue.
That's a good one. You're right. No pun intended. So the idea that when the blue sweater thought pops into my head while I'm watching TV, that's what Abraham would refer to as you receiving the idea or receiving the thought. Because I wasn't trying to make anything happen. I wasn't going, I need some new winter clothes. Maybe a sweater would be good. And I look through all my wardrobe and I go, I think blue would work for me. That's me thinking those thoughts.
Okay.
And so I've been working to practice knowing the difference between me thinking thoughts versus me receiving thoughts.
And that difference being the difference between you initiating something and you receiving some kind of an impulse or an intention or a message from your inner being or whatever.
Yeah, where it feels as though it came out of the blue, like, why am I all of a sudden thinking about that kind of thing?
Right. That's what you've been trying to help me with, actually, during our after show calls. You've been encouraging me, and people don't necessarily know this, but you've been encouraging me to try to be open to and receive those and share them when they come up. And it's kind of it's a really different experience once you can start letting yourself do it, because that's what was happening, I'm sure, over the years. I just wasn't letting myself do it. And as I'm starting to let myself do it, it's a weird thing sometimes. I mean, because I've given you a couple of them that came up, and as I'm saying it, I'm saying to myself, why on earth am I telling her this? This is not connected to anything at all. And of course, it ends up being connected perfectly, but I just didn't know how it was connected. It's just strange. Well,
and when you shared those things with me, and you would even kind of couch it, and I don't know what this has to do with anything, but this is just this thought that popped into my head So that in itself tells me you weren't deliberately going, gosh, what can I say that's going to help Wendy through this or help her get greater insight?
Very true.
You were an active listener.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And while your active listener channel was open, what you didn't realize is your receiving channel was open as well, and you were receiving insight. And then when you shared it with me, I said, I know exactly what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I was needing to hear, because that answers the questions that I've been asking. And you're like, huh, wow, who would have known?
I certainly wouldn't have. I could tell you that. I was more shocked than you were.
And I was so thrilled that you were willing to share what was coming to you, because it really was what I would call a necessary piece to my puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was pleased with it, too, because, I mean, we have basically a professional relationship as co-host, and that relationship it's developed to such a point in a very short period of time. It's been 2 months, something like that, where I felt like I could kind of trust your guidance enough to say, go with it. And so I started to go with it in a way that others had not been able to do with me. I mean, including my sister. My sister, for years ago, was trying to tell me to do this, and I just wasn't ready to do it. She tried as hard as she could, but I just wasn't ready to. You helped me get past it, so thank you.
Well, I'm very grateful to be a part of that equation.
Yeah.
So the thinking, the thought, in terms of, my question, which is I want to know when I'm starting to have manifestation actually show up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to recognize thoughts that were coming to me that felt, and I'll just use this as our key phrase, out of the blue, because I wasn't even thinking about it before, those are the things that when those thoughts pop up, I now celebrate and get excited, because I know manifestation is in process. Because everything starts with a thought. In Abraham words, everything starts with a vibration.
I've also been thinking as we've been talking, you're kind of, mulling on it in the background, that you were emphasizing that Abraham was emphasizing that thoughts and vibration are the same thing. So I'm thinking, well, so what happens if we change the way we express this? Instead of I think a thought, I vibrated a vibration. Does that work?
Okay.
I guess it does.
Well,
it's not the way we normally vibrate about it.
Well, put it this way. This is how I think of it. So I receive a vibration, but I don't know how to interpret a vibration, but I know how to interpret a thought.
I guess what I'm asking is it more than just a different label? That's what I'm really trying to get at.
Is it more than just a different label?
I think this is the closest I've ever come to stumping you, I have to say. This is really something.
Well, so there are times I have a relationship with my friend named Keisha, and Keisha is not like anyone I've ever known. She lives in a world of energy and vibration. That is her first language. And we've been friends for about 3 years, and I have been put to the test, and I mean literally put to the test, to find new ways to interpret the things that she says so that we could be on the same page. Just to carry on a conversation used to be like an effort in oh my gosh, one challenge after another, because she would talk and I'd go, I have no idea what she's saying to me. I mean, I know the words because I know the English language like she does, and she was using English, but how she described her experiences were outside of anybody's communication with me ever.
Okay.
And what I have sort of labeled it is that she lives in the world of energy. She's probably closer to what Abraham talks about as things start in a vibration, because that's how she experiences the world.
That's pretty cool, because that means she never really lost that connection when she came into the physical plane, so to speak.
I guess you could say that, but she lives more in a vibrational world than any human I have ever known. And when she talks about things, it's like she doesn't talk about them in what I'll call a linear way, which is thoughts and ideas. And like if she was going through something and she wanted me to kind of help her get over the hump, you know, I would use my words, and I'd say, well, how does this feel to you? And she'd look at me with a blank stare like, I don't even know how to answer that. And I'm like, a feeling, you know, happy, sad, glad, mad, you know, a feeling word. And she'd just stare at me, and she couldn't go there. Now, we have since, over time, worked out kind of our own languaging with each other. But what I came to realize is because she experiences the world through an energy, vibrational field, she doesn't think about things in terms of thoughts. Now, do thoughts go through her head? Yes. But it's like her focus is underneath the thought. Her focus is at the vibrational level almost all the time.
Well,
I don't know if that's answering your question of is thought just another label for vibration?
It starts to, because that last part you said that the vibration was underneath the thought. And that's interesting.
I mean, that's kind of how I experience it with her. Like if I start with the thoughts, and then I go, okay, what is the energy behind this? And I'll give her a sentence. Behind these words, what's the energy that you sense behind there? Then she can usually, you know, express something to me that makes sense to me. But
say that one more time, because I'm not sure I got that right. Say that last bit one more time.
Oh, I don't know if I can. Honestly, I don't know that I can.
All right, well then don't worry about it.
That was one of those stream of consciousness moments.
I'll have to play back the podcast later on. That's all. I'll just listen to it that way. Let me try it this way. When you I'm really fixated on that idea. It's a fascinating idea. Vibration below thought. It suggests to me that the vibration is foundational. That it's the foundation upon which the thought structure is built. I'm wondering if that's accurate.
I would agree with that because I seem to remember in the archives of my Abraham information that I do believe I have heard Abraham say something comes to us first as a vibration, and then we get a thought.
Okay.
And the way I interpret that is that most of us, unlike my friend Keisha, don't know how to interpret vibration because that's not a space we've been living in at all. And so we don't really recognize something until it shows up as a thought.
Yeah, more precisely, I wonder what, for the lack of a better phrase, what does the vibration feel like? What is the experience of the vibration like? Because I get the impression there's a definite experience to that. And I'm not saying you know the answer to it. I'm not even sure Keisha could describe it. But that's what my curiosity is. What is that like?
I do know that I have had experiences, a number of them, where something will come to me and I'll say, oh my gosh, I know something big is happening. But it defies words right now. I don't have words to label it or to interpret it, but I sense it, and I can say it's powerful, or I could say it feels like it's moving from left to right, or it's really dense or heavy, or it's really light and buoyant, and I can describe it maybe in those kinds of words.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when Keisha will say to me, you're describing an energy.
Mm.
And I go, oh, that's what you do? She goes, yeah.
Okay.
Because there are times I'll ask her a question, and I'm looking for a thought or a feeling, and she's like, it's beyond that. I'm just sensing the energy. So what I resorted to doing is saying, well, then describe the energy if you can. And that's when she kind of would start to come up with the descriptors of it's light, it's heavy, it's dense, it's thick, it's, spacious. There's lots of space. It's, all over me. It's behind me, above me, below me. It's like, oh, okay.
Wow. Because I think I had a little taste of it with Cindy earlier this week. I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday morning, but one of those days we were kind of exchanging compliments, and it was actually part of the conversation we had, the topic, in that she was making the point, when you say thank you to somebody, it has little or no impact because we're so used to that. But if you follow it up with why you're thankful to them, you give them a description of that, you can actually transmit more to them by doing that. And then she did it by thanking me for, I think for, bringing her onto the podcast and expressing why she was so appreciative about that, what it was doing for her and how it made her feel. And when she did that, I felt something. It was almost like something was coming into my solar plexus, into my chest area and into my belly area. And it was very palpable. And I'm wondering that may be the same kind of thing in a very limited sense as what Keisha feels on a regular basis about a much larger deal.
Yeah. Now that's something I do because I think because I've been friends with Keisha long enough, I have been able to be better at expressing things that I think I have always felt.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know to express it.
Okay.
And so, yes, I would say you experienced an energy exchange
mm-hmm.
that when Cindy shared or expressed some words have power, words have energy. And I believe that you probably received the energy on which those words were sending the energy.
And from my perspective, the cool part is I actually detected it.
Yay!
I mean, that's really pretty cool for me.
Much rejoicing.
There was much rejoicing, especially inside me, like, oh my God, I actually felt that.
Yeah. And it's very true that words are very powerful. And, I like to be thoughtful and mindful of words that I use in specific circumstances because I know that I can convey something energetically that can be very powerful or very destructive, depending on the words that I use.
I can see that. Yeah. I'm just really curious now about your friend. I mean, that must be quite seriously. That must be going through this life with that kind of connection, if you will, or that kind of experience. That must be a really almost very different physical experience from what the rest of us have. That's the best way I can describe it. It's got to be just quite different.
Well, the way I've described it for myself is like, if you've ever listened to somebody like on TV or whatever who's a medium and they talk to dead people and convey messages, most of them have had a similar experience where in childhood they felt really out of sorts and
right.
They were seeing things and experiencing things and nobody around them understood them or told them they were making it up. And then,
right.
Of course, later on they learned, no, they had this incredible gift because they have the sensitivity to the energy of those that have crossed over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of how I liken my friend. Yes, she's a medium, and yes, she can talk to people who are not here anymore, but she also has an incredible ability to talk to all things: nature, animals, people, trees, cars, things that we call inanimate. They're very alive. I mean, I know that they're alive because all things have consciousness, all cells have consciousness, but she experiences the aliveness of the things that we don't think of as alive.
Yeah.
Very unique way. In a very unique way. So.
Well, the fact that
sometimes it's still freaky to me.
I'm sure. It even from your perspective, it's got to be a really fascinating experience just to spend time with her and maybe vicariously experience what she's experiencing or hear from her what she can describe about it and so forth. That must be quite an experience all by itself too.
It is.
That's really something. I'm thinking about. What am I thinking about? That's the thing about this kind of thing. I remember, like, many years ago when I was first exploring LOA, and I was feeling very depressed, and I was in a bad place. I remember thinking to myself, where are all the positive words? There didn't seem to be any at that point. Since then, I've discovered that there are more than I originally thought. Now I'm having the same experience here, like, where are all the words to describe this? And there aren't any. I don't know where they are.
Well, and at the end of many of Abraham's workshops, they will say something like, we have enjoyed this more than words can convey.
That's true. Yeah, that's their common sign-off, isn't it?
And so, I mean, more than words can convey, what they're really saying is we have a sense, we feel something very powerful, but your English language is just limited in that it can't describe what it is that we really feel. So they just put with, it's beyond our description.
Yeah. Which is, it's actually a very nice and friendly way to say it, but yeah, that's got to be what it is.
Well, and I'll tell you one of the things, I know the show's not about my friend Keisha, but here it is. One of the things
it is connected. I'll get to the connection in a minute, but go ahead and tell your story.
One of the things that she's really gifted me with is the ability to not feel I have to label everything. Because I always felt like, well, how can I communicate an idea to someone unless I can express it in a way that is articulate enough that they understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And with Keisha, there are times that she and I will both experience something, and we will acknowledge to each other we're both sensing it, but we cannot label it or define it, nor does it want to be labeled or defined, because one of the things I know is when you label something, you limit it. And when you leave something as undefined, it can stay in an expansive state.
That's interesting. The act of labeling is a limiter. I hadn't realized that would be the case. I can see how that would be true, but I hadn't thought about that.
And yet simultaneously, it would be really hard to talk to each other without words.
Oh, yeah.
Because as humans, we need words.
Right.
But if you think about non-physical, doesn't require words.
Right, right.
They live in the expansiveness of non-words.
And also,
No,
go ahead.
They convey ideas one to another through telepathy, which is they just sense an energy, and that energy is then transmitted. But they don't have to use words.
Yeah, two thoughts that I wanted to share. One is you were mentioning inanimate objects and how they are actually alive and have consciousness and so forth. And I've long suspected that. And what originally put a degree of confidence about that into me, I'd heard it for many, many years, but only recently, like within the last, 10, 15 years or so, did I start to have some confidence in it because of what I learned about quantum physics. And I'm by no means a quantum physicist, and I don't claim to be. And I recognize that there are some major gaps between what those of us in the metaphysical area say about quantum physics and what your typical quantum physicist says. We're still not really having the same conversation. Nevertheless, from what I did read from standard quantum physics, I understood what I think we all pretty much agree on, that everything is energy. Well, if everything is energy, and if energy is the basis of all creation, and if that means that even inanimate objects are energy, they're like vast amounts of space with energy in the middle, and nobody can really track down where the actual matter is. Well, then clearly there has to be an opportunity, at least, for consciousness in there. And certainly there has to be an opportunity for vibration. So that's actually where I first started to come to it, not through any sense of having experienced it or having connected to it or anything like that. It's just the science of quantum physics convinced me there's got to be something going on there. So I just wanted to share that point. And then regarding the idea of, we don't want this to be about Keisha, your friend, in a sense the show is, because the topic is whether or not you have to be patient, or whether or not what you really need to do is to get yourself back into that flow that we're talking about, back into that space of total confidence and feeling of excitement and peace and freedom and all that, happiness and joy and so forth about whatever it is that you're trying to attract. Well, who's in a better space to teach us about that than somebody who is connected the way you're describing to energy, to the spiritual connectedness that Abraham's been telling us is actually the basis of the universe. Who would be better equipped to handle that? So, I mean, I envy Keisha. I do.
Well, learning how to interpret Keisha was quite a project, but I took it on lovingly because I desired to understand how she saw the world the best I could. And simultaneously, I also desired to help create a bridge for her so that she could communicate the vastness of what she experiences to people who don't experience it. Because from her perspective, she thought everyone thought like her. She thought everyone experienced the world like her.
When did she discover otherwise? How long did it take before she finally realized, wait a minute, there's something going on here?
I don't know, but I mean, I spent months in our relationship going, sweetie, we don't experience the world like you.
Oh, wow.
I won't say weird, but it is way different than how I experience the world. Like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really.
So it's relatively recent.
So, well, I mean, like I said, we've been friends for over 3 years now. But, I don't know how much she was aware of it before, but there are many conversations she and I have where I will point out something to her that I think is like a duh moment, and it'll be a big eye-opener for her because she's like, so are you saying that, like, the average person doesn't think this way? And I'm like, no, I don't. She went, oh. And it's like for her it was a big moment,
sure.
That growing awareness over time where she came to realize, oh, the rest of the world does think differently. I just had made the assumption we all are alike.
Yeah.
But maybe we're not as alike as I thought.
It's an assumption we all make. It wasn't until, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, that I thought that nobody actually had clear, vivid dreams, that they talked as if they did, but they knew they didn't really have them. Because I knew I didn't come close to having vivid dreams. I was lucky if I could visualize anything at all. And then I came to find out they really do. They get full pictures, they get video, they get everything. And I'm thinking, well, why don't I get that? I always felt like I was like lacking or something. And I'm like, well, I got cheated. What's going on?
Well, and I mean,
which of course is not
the
case.
But that, like, when it comes to music, of course I've been around music all my life. I used to be a musician. I was a singer. But, if you ask me, do I know a song, unless it was something I knew from high school, I probably don't remember it. But even if you ask me about it now and it's something I just listened to last week, I might say I've heard it, but it doesn't mean I even know what it says. I don't hear the lyrics unless I am absolutely focused on purposely listening to the lyrics.
Wow, okay.
An entire song can go by and I don't really hear the words.
Yeah.
I know they're there, but I don't focus on the words in a way that, like, I even know what the song is about. And that's in this light of we're all very different. That's an anomaly that I'm very aware I'm not like many other people. So many people are into music, and when they hear a song, they immediately listen to the lyrics.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and I don't. I don't
hear
the lyrics.
I hear the whole thing. I hear the lyrics. I hear the complete orchestration. I mean, I can anticipate every piece of it. I can hear the whole thing. Give me an orchestra. I can tell you where all the instruments are, what they're all doing, and I don't even have to hear the thing. I've heard it before, so I know where it is.
And that, to me, like, defies my sense of logic because I don't take in music that way. How I do receive music is through how it makes me feel.
Which is fantastic.
Like either my head or my foot will start bobbing up and down, or my body will start swaying, or I'll have no movement at all, and it just doesn't move me, literally.
So tying all this back to the concept of whether we need to be patient or whether we really need to just simply redirect where our attention is going, what we're really talking about here is we have different skills, we have different abilities. We have certain things we do better, certain things we don't do as well. But whatever they are, the one thing we do not want to come to the conclusion on is that if we're not quite getting something the way we're hoping to get it, if we're not, we don't have a strength that somebody else has, if we feel like there's something that would be great to have in order to attract whatever it is we're trying to attract, but we don't have that, patience is not a virtue. It's just not part of the equation.
It's a lie. It's not a virtue at all.
In fact, I mentioned to you that I'd seen a piece on it from one of the Abraham Hicks books, The Law of Attraction, that particular book. And I thought I'd read it because it kind of puts the period at the end of the sentence, so to speak. Because Jerry asked, Abraham, how do you feel about telling someone just be patient? And Abraham responded, when you understand the law of attraction and when you begin to deliberately direct your own thoughts, the things you desire will flow quickly and steadily into your experience, and patience will not be necessary. We are not excited about anyone learning patience, for it implies that things naturally take a long time, and that is not true. They only take a long time in coming when your thoughts are contradicted. If you move forward, then backward, and then forward and backward, you could potentially never get to where you want to go. But when you stop moving backward and only move forward, you get there quickly, and that does not require patience. And that's I think kind of a nice way of tying the whole thing together, because patience is something that I've wondered about. I mean, I can remember Louise and I sometimes saying, well, maybe we just got to be patient. Well, nope, it wasn't about being patient at all.
So what if we said, instead of being patient, we need to redirect our energy or redirect our thoughts?
Yeah.
Or redirect our focus? Because honestly, that's really what I did. I don't know that I thought about it in those terms. But like I said, after a couple days of going, hey, my big project feels dead. Where did it go?
Yeah, right.
I went, maybe I need to be focusing on it more, because obviously I'd been too involved with my own physical whereabouts, to have been focusing. And so the moment, Walt, I put my attention back on the new project that I wanted to create, boom, it started flying. And that's when I started receiving new thoughts and impulses and excitement, to the point that, and this has to do with, our patient topic, I had put a deadline of the end of June for when I wanted to see it manifest. And I kind of received the understanding that by putting it out so far, I was literally asking the energy to be watered down.
Really?
Here's what I'm getting right now as I'm sharing this. What I'm getting is, by not wanting to have it move quickly, because it's ready to move quickly in my experience, I'm ready for it to move quickly in my experience. By asking for it to not show up until June, it's like saying, slow down the train. Slow down the train.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to slow down the train. I want this to come fast. And so I really felt an internal sense of, move up the timetable. So I changed the deadline to March. And I got to tell you, it feels better. Now, honestly, because I know that things can take longer and whatever, I don't really care if it takes until June. But it feels better to have a new deadline of June, because it feels like there's a greater internal sense of urgency. Not the kind of urgency that makes you feel uncomfortable. I'm talking the kind of urgency that gets me really excited and lights a fire under me. So it's an urgency that really works to my benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really exciting. And so, when we think about patient, it's like I will tell you, I had been coming from a place of, Wendy, hold your horses. What's your rush? Don't try to make something happen faster than it's ready. And I really think that was my own lackful belief that I could manifest something quickly.
Sure.
Like, I was somehow not mature enough to do it, or I hadn't grown enough in law of attraction to manifest.
Yeah, right.
And I have to tell you, the thoughts that have been coming to me lately is, Abraham says, creating a button versus a castle requires no difference in terms of the law of attraction's ability.
Yeah, I've heard them say that too. Well, all right.
So I'm like,
in this context,
okay.
then, let me ask you something. In this context, because we've got a good context going here, and it makes me think about something that I've talked about with you and with other coaches at various times. And so I'm just curious to see what you're going to say in this context. The question is, there are times where we're not only not feeling in alignment, but we find ourselves stuck on a topic. It's like something that just kind of gnaws at us, and we try to draw our attention away, and we just snap right back to it. And no matter what we do, we just can't seem to draw our attention away. And it's one of those those old sticky tapes that just don't stop playing. And there are techniques we try to use. We'll try to redirect our thoughts. We'll try to get to a happy place and so forth. But in this context that we're in right now, if anything like that ever happens, what's your first move?
Well, what came to mind when you were setting up the scenario is I have remembered some times when I felt so stuck, because no matter how much movement I wanted to make, I just kept coming back to the same rigid thoughts, beliefs, or rules. And so what that tells me, if that's going on, it means I've created so much momentum in the direction of where I was going, or the non-movement, that my best thing is to find a way to stop thinking about it at all. Because what's required is for the momentum train to slow down.
Right.
And see, the momentum train equals law of attraction is throwing more fuel on the fire. I don't even have to do it. Law of attraction is doing it, because that is what momentum is where something takes on a life of its own. And so when something is at that level of intensity where it's taken on a life of its own, then I need to get out of the way because I'm fueling law of attraction's fueling. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And
so if I get out of, it's kind of like if I'm the one, okay, let's say you're the engineer fueling the train, and my job is to throw you the logs, and your job is to put the logs in the fire so that they can keep burning.
Right.
If I stop throwing you logs, you can't put anything else on the fire.
Right, yeah, no, I get that.
And eventually the fire will burn out. So that's kind of what my thought is. When you feel really stuck, it's because you just keep beating your head against the wall trying to make something happen, and it's not happening because you introduced so much resistance to the equation that now the only thing you can do is get the hell out of there.
And what I'm trying to ask is a similar question to that, but not exactly that. You were asking the question of what do you do when you're stuck. My question is, what do you do when you're stuck and you're trying to change your thought away and you're having trouble changing the thought away?
Okay, my answer is the same. And I was really answering that question.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, stop thinking about it. You have to stop thinking about it. Even though I know you're trying to create it, how you're going to keep creating it is by getting out. See, the universe already knows what you want.
What I'm saying, though, is if I get in a space like that, unfortunately it doesn't happen as much anymore. It used to happen a lot. But when I'm in that space, when I try to stop thinking about it, if I just try to do it as like stop thinking about it, that doesn't work. I'm instantly thinking about it again. So I'll try to find another way to rip my mind away, so to speak, and say, okay, I'm going to focus on something else, and I focus on something else, and I can hold it for a few seconds, and all of a sudden I'm back to the other one. It's like, how the hell did I get back here? And it's like this tennis match. Like, okay, how am I going to get this thing away so I'm no longer looking at that? I'm looking at this now. I'm looking at this, and bang, I'm there again. I mean, you're overcoming a lot of negative momentum there. I know that. I understand that. I'm just looking for like what's the best strategy to do that?
Absolute distraction in another direction that will require your brain to be focused on something else.
So like a task you have to do, not just like something that's optional.
Yeah. So here I'm going to give you something that's outrageous, and this will be way extreme, but I think you'll get the idea. So if you are trying to do something and you can't get, and it's not happening, and you just can't get it to go that direction, then hire a circus performer who will teach you how to do a tightrope walk. I promise you, if you are focused on a death-defying thing of putting your feet, all 6'8" of you, and your feet on a little tightrope, I guarantee you will stop focusing on whatever that other thing was.
This is true.
And so,
sadly, there's never a tightrope around when you need one, but still, it's a great example.
Well, but the idea is when you engage your whole mind and body in something else where you can't afford to be thinking about anything else, that'll do the trick.
That's good. Yeah, I like that because, I mean, the principle is a good one. Inevitably, there's something going on in our lives at any given time where, within the next day or two, somewhere in there, there's something you have to do. If you don't do it, it messes up a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. You have to do that. And maybe that's it. Maybe you use that to break the focus. Maybe you use that to break that momentum chain that's been going on.
For some people, it could be something as simple as go to a movie. Don't watch a DVD at home. Go out to a physical movie theater. Get outside. Get in the car. Go stand in a line. Talk to all the different people, and fully engage yourself in a movie. Because the idea of a movie, most of the time, is you have to displace your beliefs anyway to believe what the heck they're showing you on the big movie screen.
Mm-hmm. The only caveat I'd throw in, though, is it's got to be a movie that doesn't have a lot of negativity in it, because you got a lot of negativity. That would just refuel it for me anyway. I don't know about somebody else, but... Or
pick one that's high action, where if you, blink, you're going to miss what just happened, and you're just really on the edge of your seat. But, the idea is just be thoughtful about what you choose to do. It could be something about going to a family function. It could be taking a vacation. It could go to the aquarium. It could be go to a baseball game. It could be jog, run around the block. It could be get on a bicycle, go kayaking. But if you find that any one of those activities puts you in a space where you're physically doing the action, but you have all this free time for your brain to be thinking, well, then that's not the idea for you.
Yeah, okay. That also helps explain it a bit, because one thing that I tend to do when that kind of thing happens is that I do one of my favorite things, which is to go for a walk, and lately to go for a walk while playing some positive music on my iPhone. That combination has not failed yet. Now, I can't say I've been doing that combination for more than like 6 months, 7 months, something like that. But during the time I've used that one has not failed yet. So that may be enough for me. I don't know. Just by having the two things to do, the focusing on the nature and focusing on the music. It's hard to get the third thought in there.
I mean, I like to play Sudoku. Sudoku, is that how you say it? That kind of little game puzzle that has like a bunch of squares. You can put numbers in them, and they all have to add up to a certain something.
I've never played it, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, I had it like in what looked like a coloring book, but it was one puzzle on every page, and then I finally found it on my tablet. So now I'll play that thing, and I'll do it over and over and over again. But it's all, you've got to use your mind for, it's mathematical, and that occupies a part of my brain that I can't be thinking about a problem while I'm doing one of those puzzles.
Oh, wow. You just answered something for me, something I've been wondering for a long time. One of my favorite things to do when I don't want to face doing a task or when I'm feeling a little bit down or whatever is to do certain repetitive things over and over and over again. For a while, it was playing Free Cell, and I since stopped that. But just there are certain things, like sometimes I'll just go through and I'll be clicking on articles on a particular subject just to see, are there any new articles that showed up in the last 15 seconds? And I've wondered, why do I do that? I think I know why now. It's because it's like my subconscious mind saying, here's a way to take your mind off that crazy topic you've been thinking about.
There you go.
Yeah.
I get this is only something I've been doing recently, but I can get lost in a Facebook feed for an hour at night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if that's something that allows you to free your mind from whatever, quote, the problem area is, then it's a perfect distraction. And if you can do it over and over and over, so that while you're busy clicking on things and you're not thinking about that thought that you don't want to think about, law of attraction is slowing down because there's no more fuel being put on the fire, and so the momentum is slowing down.
Of course, the one thing we don't want to do, of course, in that case, is we don't want to rely on it. We don't want to become habitual and sort of like an addictive kind of thing, because now we're not actually dealing with whatever that negative thought is. We're avoiding it.
Oh, no.
But if we treat it as a temporary thing.
I'm going to be controversial and say, yes, get addictive.
Really?
Yeah, obsess on something else. Do everything and anything you can to stay away from that topic, that when you get involved in it, it goes bad. Because when you're totally off that topic, remember I said law of attraction knows what you want. They'll bring it to you as soon as the environment vibrationally is clear.
Well, you know what? Let's make this a topic for Monday, because I think this is a really interesting one. I'm not sure how we're going to frame this one, but this is one I think I'm actually, for a rare occasion, I'm actually willing to confront you and say, no, I'm not sure I agree with that. So let's make it a topic. I think it'll be fun. Otherwise, we do it today, but we only have a minute left, so we can't really do it today. But before we leave, I want to get two thoughts in. First thought, and I can't do my full speech, so we have to do the short version. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Quickest way to do it is LOAtoday.net. And Wendy, if somebody wants to get some help from you, that's the second thought. How do they get some help from you?
All they have to do is go to wendydillard.com.
You always make it so simple. I mean, don't you have like a complex version there? No, I'm kidding you. I'm teasing. But I certainly look forward to carrying on our conversation on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend, and I hope everyone else does too. And
be patient until the next show. Or not.
Or not, yeah, right. Okay, now everyone's really confused, but that's okay. That'll bring you back next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye now.